One day, the Buddha was in Kosambi, in the Simsapa forest. He picked up a handful of Simsapa leaves and asked, "Bhikkhus, what do you think? Are the Simsapa leaves in my hand many, or are the leaves in the Simsapa forest many?" "Venerable sir, the leaves in the Blessed One's hand are very few, while the leaves in the Simsapa forest are very many." The Buddha said, "Likewise, bhikkhus, what I know is very much, but what I have taught you is very little. Yet what I have taught is essential and fundamental for liberation. What have I taught you? It is this. This is suffering. This is the origin of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. And this is the path leading to the cessation of suffering." Samyutta Nikaya V. The Four Noble Truths form the foundation of the Buddhist teaching system. Right after attaining enlightenment, the Buddha went to the deer park to deliver his first sermon to the 5 ascetics, including Kaundinya, who had practiced austerities with him previously. The core of that first teaching was the Four Noble Truths. From that point onward, throughout his teaching journey, the Four Noble Truths were expounded and expanded upon. The Buddha repeatedly emphasized the importance and transcendence of this teaching, stating, "Those who are rightly awakened in the past, in the future, or in the present are considered truly awakened regarding the Four Noble Truths." Samyutta Nikaya Vi. The purpose of Buddhism is to liberate beings from all suffering. Therefore, all practices and efforts in Buddhism are directed toward this goal. The teaching of the Four Noble Truths is considered the supreme good. Sariputta declared, "Just as the footprints of all animals can fit within the footprint of an elephant, because the elephant's footprint is the largest, so too all wholesome states are included within the Four Noble Truths." Majjhima Nikaya An. The Buddha also said, "Bhikkhus, if someone were to say, 'I will build the upper story of a house without building the lower story,' such a thing is impossible. Likewise, if someone were to say, 'I will end suffering without realizing the Four Noble Truths,' such a thing is impossible." Samyutta Nikaya Va. Even when approaching parinirvana under the twin sala trees, the Buddha reminded his disciples for the last time about the Four Noble Truths. "Bhikkhus, if you have any doubts regarding the Four Noble Truths, you should ask now. Do not harbor doubts without seeking answers." Mahaparinibbana Sutta, translated by Thich Tree Quang. The significance of the Four Noble Truths has been affirmed by the Buddha himself and by his eminent disciples. Over 2,500 years have passed, yet the Four Noble Truths remain highly regarded and practiced by all Buddhist schools, whether Theravada or Mahayana. The Four Noble Truths are a translation of the Sanskrit term Katvari Arya Satyini. Arya means noble, sublime, and profound, while Satya means truth or reality. The Four Noble Truths are also called the Four Real Truths, the Four Holy Truths, or the Four Sublime Truths. 1. The truth of suffering, dukkha, the reality of suffering in human life. 2. The truth of the origin of suffering, samudaya, the cause or source of suffering. 3. The truth of the cessation of suffering, nirodha, the ending or cessation of suffering. 4. The truth of the path, magga, the path or method that leads to the end of suffering. The Four Noble Truths are mentioned in various scriptures, including the Discourse on the Discrimination of Truths, Majjhima Nikaya 3, Discourse on the Differentiation of Noble Truths, Madhyama Agama, and the First Turning of the Dharma Wheel, Samyutta Nikaya and Samyutta Agama, and are scattered throughout the Pali and Chinese canons. 2. The content of the Four Noble Truths. 1. The truth of suffering, dukkha. Suffering is a reality that humans experience from birth until death. No one can deny this truth. People often seek to escape suffering and find happiness, but due to not understanding the nature of suffering, they fail to find a true way out. Sometimes, in their pursuit of happiness, they encounter more suffering. The Buddha taught, birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering, association with the unpleasant is suffering, separation from the pleasant is suffering, not getting what one wants is suffering. In brief, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging are suffering. Samyutta Nikaya V. 2. The truth of the origin of suffering, samudaya. The origin of suffering is attachment and desire. Craving, clinging to desires leads to suffering. The deeper cause of suffering is ignorant avijja, not seeing the true nature of phenomena which are interdependent, impermanent, and lack an independent, enduring self. 3. The truth of the cessation of suffering, Nirodha. The cessation of suffering is nirvana, nibbana, a state of ultimate happiness and peace. Nirvana is not a place or a specific realm, but a state of being free from desire, hatred, and ignorance. 4. The truth of the path, Magga. The path to end suffering is the Noble Eightfold Path, which includes right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This path is the practical method to achieve liberation. Human suffering is not merely due to material lack or worldly desires, but mainly due to ignorance. The Buddha's teaching offers a path and method to open one's wisdom and achieve liberation from suffering. The Four Noble Truths are both the means and the end of this path, offering practical benefits for individuals and society alike. The teaching emphasizes the middle way, avoiding extremes of self-indulgence and self-mortification. The Four Noble Truths encompass all of the Buddha's teachings, providing a foundation for both monastic and lay practitioners to achieve freedom from suffering and contribute to the transformation of society.